Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you on behalf of Earth Core, I'll be your co-host, Dave Trumbore. Joining me, as always, my Mutor co-host, Sean Paulus. How's it going, Sean?
David. I'm doing well, buddy. How about yourself?
You got the rumbles over there. Everything okay? Like a little
the
earthquake or something going on. What was that about?
Just a little tremor,
A little earth shake?
little aftershock,
What's got you shaking your boots over there, bub?
Ooh, I'll tell you what it is. It's our special friend and guest that is joining us today. Has got me shaking. We've got Jamal Newman coming back on the show. Hey, Jamal, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me on, Dave, Sean. So happy to be back.
I'm sorry.
What a fun time this is going to be.
I'm sorry we made you watch this particular cartoon. But we are smack in the middle of our Monster Madness month, so you kind of walked right into it. Hopefully, Sean gave you the heads up ahead of time.
He did give me the heads up ahead of time, and I walked head on into it.
Yeah.
Knowingly, too.
I feel like I'm ahead of the game.
Anything else? What else you got?
Oh, man.
Nice head on my shoulders.
He does. He's got his head on straight.
You want to keep going?
What else you got?
Head and Shoulders dandruff shampoo.
Oh,
There's our product placement for this episode. Brought to you by Head and Shoulders Dandruff Shampoo.
That's it. That's all I got.
Okay,
That's all I got.
fair enough. Moving on. So yeah, last week we covered a pretty. We're kind of getting in we're scraping the bottom of the monster barrel here already in our second or third year of doing Monster Madness in October.
This is our third year.
Third year, so we've already run out of. I want to say decent cartoons, but no, we've still got a bunch out there. We're finding some more obscure ones. Last week we covered Gravedale High, featuring the one and only Rick Moranis. This week we're going to be talking about a show called InHumanoids. This one was new to me. For you guys, had you watched this before? Did you watch it when you were a kid? Sean?
I remember watching this when I was a kid. I think the thing that I remember even more is that I had a friend of mine that had a couple of the toys. And I was never really 100% certain. I think I maybe watched Inhumanoids because of the block of shows that it was on that we'll talk about, because they are very familiar and we have talked about them before. And so I think as a result, I was familiar and aware, but I think I'd only maybe seen like one or two episodes. But it was the toys. The toys were actually like really, really cool. They were like really tall. They were kind of fun. I think my friend had Tendril that we'll talk about a little bit more.
That's what I was going to ask, if you had like the monster toys or the hero toys, because some have to be cooler than the others.
Yeah, the monster toys were definitely cooler. I don't really remember anybody or any friends having the human toys, like the actual Earth Core guys.
I didn't have any of these toys. I didn't like monster toys when I was a kid. I was straight building massive G.I. Joe battles. That was my core. That, Dragon Ball Z. If it wasn't human, I really wasn't into it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you're talking...
Inhumanoid sounds like your worst possible nightmare.
Yeah, basically.
But you're talking G.I. Joe that had, like, Serpentor, and it had, like, later episodes, people who were not even human at all.
I didn't know those characters. We're talking Duke, Destro, we're talking Snake Eyes.
Scarlet.
No. We're talking
Sergeant Slaughter.
What's his name? Sergeant Slaughter.
Snake Eyes.
The black guy. Chain gun.
Roadblock.
Roadblock. There it is. You know, why'd they name him after a partition? I
don't know.
The black
after a K rail.
Hurdle.
It's pretty messed up.
The black guy's the hurdle. I just put that together. Anyways, but yeah, I didn't have any of the Inhumanoids.
Did you watch a cartoon at all?
Not the Inhumanoids.
No, I haven't either.
This was a first for me.
Yeah, it's probably first for a lot of folks out there too. So we're gonna have Sean roll through the history real quick to kind of give you a background on where the show came from.
Inhumanoids is a 1986 13-episode animated series and Hasbro toy property. In the tradition of other Hasbro properties such as Transformers and G.I. Joe, the show was produced by Sunbow and Marvel Productions and animated in Japan by Toei Animation. The Inhumanoids series did not begin as a conventional 22-minute cartoon, but rather as a slate of 6 to 7 minute shorts that aired as part of the collective Super Sunday half-hour block alongside of other Marvel Sunbow series such as Gem of the Holograms, which would be very familiar, Bigfoot and the Muscle Machines, and of course, robotics.
It's crazy to me that we've covered all of these shows, though.
I can't believe that.
Yeah.
We should not have covered all these shows.
At least 3.
That's a testament to you guys. Yeah.
Yes. I feel like 4/4 of these shows we should not have covered, but
122 episodes in, and we're watching now just anything that comes along.
Anything remotely animated, we're just
crazy
watching.
It is. We're doing it.
Eventually, though, that was bound to happen once you get through the nitty gritty. Then now you're in the deep internet. Right.
But I think about the fact that like there are so many cartoons that we have not even like touched yet. Like Rescue Rangers, DuckTales, all of these, like some of these Disney classics. There's a bunch of other things that I just uncovered and remembered the other day that are going to be even worse than what we've watched tonight.
Man, I got a tough time believing that, but I mean,
I'm sure it's out there. we really, in terms of the scale, we're like at the top of the bell curve right now, because there are things that are worse and there are things that are much, much better that we all remember.
Yeah, and we've avoided like the major stuff, like you said, like Dragon Ball Z, a lot of the more major things, a lot of the Disney shows, just because like we remember them being decent. Plus, everybody remembers them, so we wanted to hit more of the obscure stuff, like InHumanoids. So if you're not familiar with this one tonight, InHumanoids tells the story of the scientist hero group Earth Corps, which is a very fun pun that we'll talk about probably at length tonight, as they battle a trio of subterranean monsters called the InHumanoids with the aid of elemental beings, the Mutors. I could just sum this up and just say it's a complete mess, but I don't want to give anything away, so we'll definitely get into that tonight. Just general reactions from you guys first, since it's the first time we watched this. Yeah.
Cool. I loved it. I really enjoyed the hell out of this show.
Interesting.
I thought there was just enough crazy in this, and it moved along at like a breakneck pace that it was so ridiculous and so batshit insane. And it's only 13 episodes. I think because I knew that it was 13 episodes going in, I was like, the investment's not going to be too much for me to actually see this thing the whole way through. And so having that in mind, I was like, yeah, I kind of legitimately really enjoyed this. And I thought the creatures were fun too. I had never really seen anything like some of these weirdos that were in this show before.
For good reason.
Yeah. So that was my take on it. Jamal, how you feeling?
Well, I felt like I was watching a construction team battle against environment. I feel like the undertones of the show was, I believe it's an all-white crew. Destroying the planet, and the planet is fighting back. Earlier on in the first episode, I realized that the bad guys were not the bad guys that I thought. There's a different sect of bad guys, and I was like, oh, this is there's social commentary happening here. Talking about environment. So,
well, we have seen some really, really heavy-handed environmental cartoons like Digimon, and even though we haven't talked about on the show Captain Planet,
sure.
obviously, and so. Those two are like unbelievably heavy-handed from the outset and saying that like we are really fucking up this planet and we need to fix it. I feel like this is a little bit more subtle.
A little subtle, but I picked up because I have big, powerful.
Yeah. So we brought you on the show.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I felt like I don't know if I had the same draw to the fast pace of it of you, but I did stop, and a lot of times in the show made me go, wait, what? Like there's a lot of things that happen, especially like in between breaks. I was like, wait, what? Like they'd come back and there's a different tone and vibe to the same piece of dialogue that was just delivered. I'm like, wait a minute, what? And then like there was a line that was delivered to earlier on to the one of the women, and then it was like, I hope I see you. And then she was like, okay. And then he's like, I really do hope I see you. It was very creepy. I was like, wait, what?
Because it was like to no one. She was gone on a fucking helicopter, and he's like,
yeah.
I really hope I see you again.
Yeah.
To like no one. There's no one around, pal.
Daddy wants to see you.
Get that sweet ass back here.
It was very good. So there's a lot of moments like that in this that made me go, whoa, what? But overall, I didn't love it like you loved it, Sean.
Okay.
We've got a good spectrum here because we're going from Sean loved it, Jamal was kind of in the middle, and I'm definitely on the other end. That this just made me want to tear my skin off. So that should give you a nice range, and we should have a good conversation for it. I'm probably going to get real angry at certain points, but before we do, let's get into the theme song, because what a way to start the show by being fucking angry at this theme song. So let's get into it.
So let's first start off by saying that there are two theme songs that are being sung. All right, during the entire this entire like 30-second theme song, there is sort of a chorus of people who are singing InHumanoids over and over again, right. and then there's like a verse part that kind of describes the fact that like they're under the earth, and this is where the threat's coming from, blah blah blah, and And then in the background, the second theme song that's being sung sounds like somebody who was it sounds like Dave singing because he was really annoyed that this show had to be made in the first place. And it's just sort of contrasting with what's going on. So like while you have people that are going like, "InHumanoids, InHumanoids," there's another voice that simultaneously is going, "InHumanoids, like he just sounds like
it sounds like there's a demon in the recording booth though too.
Yeah.
You've got one guy who's just like, "InHumanoids, fuck this show," and then there's another guy who's just like a straight up demon in the recording booth.
Yeah,
it's super creepy actually, and kind of scary. Which works for the show.
It does, and it's what's even worse or what's even more bizarre is like all in all, the theme song, like the actual animation that's going on really doesn't make a ton of sense.
No.
Okay, like there's stuff. These monsters are attacking them. They're going down into the earth. Then they're fighting them down in the bottom of the earth. But it looks like they're gonna die, and like it ends in sort of like a perilous situation where all of our heroes, and for some reason a woman in a blue dress, are being thrown into lava, and then it doesn't actually show you what the results are. Nothing. They don't tell you. They leave you with that cliffhanger. It's just a hand coming up out of the ground, and it just goes, "InHumanoids," and that's like it. And to look at it, you're just like, whoa. Like it was fun to kind of see because now you know who the heroes are and you know who the villains are. Very easily established.
I don't think you
Crazy
do.
monsters.
I gotta give it to Jamal right now because I don't think you do from that.
Okay.
This is one of those cartoons. Is the reason why kids think there's monsters on it. The
Okay.
intro to this alone I would not have watched this as if I was a kid, and I knew it was on TV because X-Files. The intro music scares the shit out of me today.
Yeah.
So I know I'm not man enough to handle this as a kid. This show's intro music it creeped me out. That was the first thing I noticed. I was like, this is pretty, like I'm thinking of my younger self. I'm like, I would not watch this. I would be too intimidated by this creepiness to watch this and like be a follower every week. I couldn't do it.
Luckily only for 13 weeks, so it wouldn't have been too bad.
That's like a lifetime for a child.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
That's
I think
forever.
it was because that low demon voice was like that weird sub-hearing threshold, where it's like you might not actually be able to hear it, but you sense that it's there, so it has to be a demon because there's something there, but you can't actually hear it. So definitely fucking.
Did you kind of notice, Dave, that there was some really weird like sound effects that was kind of going on also like underneath the singing?
The whole thing just sounded like a really lazy production, to be honest, because it sounded unbalanced. Now, granted, that might have just been like the video that we watched because this has been pulled from God knows where.
Oh no! I've watched different versions of this.
What did you
it's
watch?
very
Or
unbalanced.
what'd you pick up?
Oh no! So there were like moments where like they're throwing like one of the, I think it was Decompose, one of the creatures is throwing a rock into like some stalactites, and then they're falling down, but it's making like this weird like almost like a Wilhelm scream in the background.
Oh yeah, like really bad, just like stock Foley noises that don't make any sense.
So they just have like all this really, really bizarre Foley. It almost sounds like people having conversations in the background that were just like, we don't want to watch this either.
Those were the other people
like,
in the
what are you
recording
doing?
booth that were just like,
Yeah.
you guys, your time is up. I'm sorry, we have to kick you out.
I felt that too because I was looking at my computer. I was like, am I watching something else right now?
Yeah, just
I
check
didn't
the
know
other
something else was
tabs.
on.
Yeah.
I legitimately thought because I just thought that there was another tab that was open that was playing an advertisement at the same
That's
time.
what I thought as well. I was like, is there something? Let me turn off the other stuff. I don't have anything else on.
No,
what is
that's
what
it.
is that in the background?
Just the InHumanoids theme song, just to creep you the hell out. I don't know, man. I thought the whole thing was kind of lazy. It was rushed. It wasn't super catchy. Not in like a good way or an earworm kind of way. It's just kind of blah. I like the animation style of it. I like the introduction to some of the like big creepy creatures and whatever the hell these human power suits are, which we'll get to in a second. But I don't know.
Can
Final
I
thoughts?
talk about the animation for a second?
Sure, let's get into
jump
it.
in.
Animation done by Nelson Shin. Heard of him?
Nope.
He's done some credits like Batman the Animated
Yeah.
Series. Heard of it? X-Men. Heard of it? Transformers. The Simpsons. Heard of it?
Yes.
So when I first watched this, I was like, man, this animation style looks familiar. It was pre-X-Men.
Was it his
really?
first thing?
I think it was his first thing.
Wow.
I was like, this looks like X-Men, like back when Rogue had that flowing hair and she was
Okay.
still into Gambit. That's what I think of.
The good old days.
Like that X-Men. And I was like, this looks X-Men-y. And then I looked it up and was like, oh, the same guy. Same animation studio.
That actually makes a lot of sense because that's like
cool.
the only thing from this entire episode that we watched that I actually liked was just the animation, the flow of the animation. It wasn't janky like, Bigfoot and the Muscle Machines was kind of janky at times. This actually had like a good flow to it, a good kind of believability to the animation. I don't necessarily love the character design. The story is just completely whatever. We'll get into it, but I do like the animation, so I will say that. That's like I'll give it 1.5 stars, 1 for animation, and then 1/2 for some of the monster designs. Yeah, John.
I mean, I think the crazy thing is, and we talked about this in the beginning of the show, was that there were 4 shows that all came out at the same time. Yeah. All right, Gem and the Holograms, Robotics, Bigfoot and the Muscle Machines, and InHumanoids. And like they could not be more different in terms of the shows. I think maybe there's a little bit of parallel that you could make, or you'd really be reaching for between InHumanoids and Robotics. But like they could not be polar like opposites and complete different stories in terms of what they were. But like I can see now like a little bit of the similarities in the animation just because of the fact that they had the same animation studio kind of working behind them. Like, you can kind of see some of those cross threads, but like this seemed completely different in terms of like its concept, its pitch, like what direction they were going in. I mean, we went from a girl glam rock band with magic earrings to weird robot like sentient creatures on a planet somewhere to Yank Justice driving across the country in his Bigfoot muscle car with his 3 pillars to InHumanoids. Yeah. So like, and it's like you can't like this feels like such a quintessential classic 80s story that you could not make up anywhere else. It's like, look, we had 4 batshit insane ideas. We got Japan on board to animate it.
All of Japan.
And Japan was like,
totally cool
yes.
with this. Let's
Nelson
do it.
Shin. Heard of him?
Heard of him?
We're going to do a spin-off show, Nelson Shin Show. Only talk Nelson Shin shows. Just call it Shin Show, the podcast.
I like it.
Moving on. Let's get into this episode here tonight. So we watched the first one. Now, this was like the first of a 5-part sort of mini-series that launched into the 13-episode series. You really can't find these too many places online, so we watched kind of a smattering of InHumanoids episodes tonight. But we all watched the first episode, which is the intro to pretty much everything. So we're going to walk you through that and tell you at the end whether it's worth watching or whether it's worth scrubbing from all existence ever, which some of us may be in favor of. So the first person that we meet in this show is a reporter who happens to be in a helicopter. And we find out that she's flying over the Big Sur National Forest, and she is reporting on what exactly?
Evidently the skeleton of a dinosaur that is encased in amber.
So that's a hell of a thing right out of the gates.
Yeah.
We also find out right out of the gate that Earth Core is government funded.
It is government funded sometimes.
It is.
Only sometimes.
Which feels like a very only sometimes. That felt like such a convenient note that then gets buttoned later. So that's like, let's dog ear that little thing. But yeah, that's a good thing to note.
Yeah, definitely a good thing to know they're government funded. Because when she lands somewhere and then just goes up to interview one of the people who's like the leader of Earth Core, who's working on the ground. What'd she call him? Like Herman? Herm?
She calls him Herman.
Hank?
She calls him Herman.
His name's
it's
Herc. She calls him something else.
Okay.
His name is
she
Herc
calls him Herman.
Armstrong. And now's a great time to talk about what the fuck is he wearing?
Yep, let's get into this.
And let's just talk about his first, because we don't meet these other idiots until later on in the episode. But this is your first exposure beyond the theme song of like, these are your heroes. These are the action figures and toys that you want to run out and buy, right? So what are we presented with in this guy?
He's wearing like an all green kind of outfit.
Yeah, he's the all green nightmare, as I called him. Yeah.
Right, all green nightmare, and he goes by codename Hooker because one of the arms that's on it has like a giant hook that he can shoot up to lasso or repel or grapple onto something and
be in that rider's room.
Oh right.
Hey, you always need a grappling hook. So I mean, if you're like the new guy in the room and you feel like you gotta like make a submission, but you don't want to go too far, just be like, this guy needs a grappling. But then if you call him Hooker, maybe that's a little strong.
I feel like that code name could have just sort of been left out. I love the fact that when this reporter she's just like, we have Herman Armstrong with us, and you just hear him under his breath just go, Herc. It's like, what? Like, you all right, buddy?
He does not want to futz with this lady whatsoever. He does not have time for it. He is transporting a giant dinosaur trapped in amber. He's not got time for this bitch. Because she's bringing up stuff. She's like, oh, what do you think about the rumors that some strange sounds were being heard and the trees were like shaking and
the trees are speaking and the monolith is glowing.
He's like, I don't give a fuck. What are you talking about?
He's almost like an NFL coach for half
yeah, exactly.
When it comes up, wants to talk about, hey, your team sucked the first half. What do you think? He's like, oh my God, I don't think this.
You're down 48-0 at the half. What do you think you can do to straighten it out in the second half? I
really don't feel like I have the time right now. Like, I'm really trying to concentrate on the actual game that's in hand right now.
But can you answer my question first?
No, absolutely.
Coach, can you please just answer my question?
I absolutely cannot.
All right, back to you in the studio.
At which point, so she's talking about these trees that are apparently speaking like in the forest, which this is all pretty bizarre to just start with. So like Sean mentioned before, it does kind of have like a fairly quick pace to it, at least to start. Because then all of a sudden you kind of see some like weird tree shit happening, some like Evil Dead 2 level tree stuff. You don't really quite know what's going on. And then a tree just snaps in half and almost crushes the two of them. At which point I loved how he treats this situation because he basically yelled at her like it was her fault. And then kind of just shoves her out of the way. So he like, it's nothing
typical. Am I right, guys? Mm-hmm. I mean, ladies.
I mean, you know, I hate to say this, and this is always the challenge. All right, is that you have somebody who's handling an unknown quantity in the middle of the woods. All right, they're transporting this, and suddenly
they're in a big weird suit.
The media has to hop all over it. They have to try to figure out everything that's going on during this time, and like, it doesn't fucking matter.
No, just one lady trying to be April O'Neil.
Doesn't fucking matter. Yeah, you know, and she has to get in there and look. It is a dangerous area. He's in a weird, almost like Michelin Tire Man style suit.
It's not,
and he's still in trouble. So what makes you think you landing in a helicopter means that you're perfectly fine?
Just in your regular civilian ass clothes, just holding there with a microphone and being like, "Can you tell?" Like, these are this felt like Fox News touchdown. Yeah. Just like, what's going on about these trees talking right now?
What's up with these trees?
Fuck off!
How did you get clearance?
Yeah,
Who are you?
I just dropped in a helicopter.
Yeah. Well, now let me flip this on you guys though. Put yourself in her shoes real quick. You've just flown out in the helicopter. You got permission from your boss, or maybe you didn't. You landed in the middle of the forest. You found this guy who's basically a walking tank. You went up to him to interview him about speaking trees, strange noises, and a giant dinosaur skeleton encased in amber that's being moved on like tank treads, like a fucking shuttle. You've done all this stuff, and you almost just got killed on live TV by a tree falling on you. Is this the best time to say, well, that's it from me, now back to the studio? Or perhaps continue with what's about to happen and maybe further your career at this point?
No, you got to go back to the studio. They've got time constraints.
I love the fact that she flew out there, because presumably if she's cutting back or she's like doing a send-off at the end of this, like they were live. Like they flew her out there to do like a live segment.
Yeah.
Just be like, what about the trees? On air. What about the trees?
It's real gotcha journalism.
I'm tired of Vice showing up to all these places trying to do this shit. It's real fucking annoying.
But like,
I just started saying, get out of here, Vice.
But as like a reporter myself, I was just like, what? That was your story. That's your story. That could have been like this whole episode, you introducing the story. But you're just like, well, that's it for me. Back to the studio. You're fired. Leave her out in the forest.
This sort of became the portion of the story where like it was just people showing up for no actual reason to provide the smallest bit of exposition to then immediately be shuttled the fuck out of the way.
Well, a great case to your point coming up next, because then we visit a drilling site.
Yep.
Where there are people randomly drilling into the earth for some reason. You know, presumably
I was like, man,
really stuff. Yeah.
For 2 seconds, I was like, they really got to get this fracking thing in Pennsylvania under control. This
in 1986.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. I love the way that this particular drill worked, because everybody on site was like super excited that they finally hit like 1 mile deep. Right. And then Mr. iPat shows up and he's just like, make it 2 miles.
Do you mean out of shape Nick Fury?
Out of shape Nick Fury. Yeah. Retired Nick Fury.
Before he got his promotion.
Social Security Nick Fury is this guy. So he shows up and he's just like, make it 2 miles. And they're just like, oh, fuck, I guess. Sounds like a great idea, right? And here, Sean, to your point, do you remember this guy who was operating the drill? Do you remember his little snippet of exposition before he dives off an exploding drilling platform?
No, what did he say?
He says, I feel like I just punched through a wall or something.
Oh,
and then just
right.
dives out of frame and you never see him again.
Yep.
Because at this
Presumably,
point, drilling down 2 miles, 1 mile they were fine. 2 miles, something happened. What do they unleash upon the world?
Oh. Well, you see for like 2 seconds, it looks like a tentacle, like a green kind of tentacle.
Because Japan.
Kind of like, right, because Japan. Kind of a slash across the ground, and then that's sort of it. And then you see out of shape Nick Fury just sit there, and again, just kind of with the one-liner who just goes, "The ancient documents were right."
Fuck.
and like that was it.
And he has a cigar, doesn't he?
He might as well have.
Did he have a cigar in his mouth?
I don't think he did, because that was probably against standards and practices at the time, but he might as well have. Just imagine that he did.
Maybe I'm just imagining it.
Imagine that he did. The ancient document.
God.
Let me back up 1 second.
Sure.
And during that opening sequence where they're putting out, they're dealing with the dinosaur, at one point, someone uses the term, "Bring out the fire retardant."
Yeah, that's...
To which I was watching, I was like, oh, come on. You mean fire challenged?
Oh,
In the modern era, 1986, they can get away with it.
I'm like,
we gotta be
come
more
on.
sensitive
Like,
about this.
Come on.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's a
shame.
PSA
It's a
brought
shame
to you
that-
by Jamal.
It took me out of it.
Yeah.
Like, I was
It did.
in it, and then they had to use the R word. And I was like, taking your audience out.
Well, to that point, you have to really wonder, because like nothing has happened to this thing. It's a giant. For 2 seconds, I was just like, oh, this is like a bigger version of Jurassic Park. Cool.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Before it was written or was a movie, but that's fine.
So thanks a lot, Michael Crichton, for stealing this idea
Yeah.
and turning it into a multi-million-dollar franchise.
Thanks a lot, dead Michael Crichton, stealing InHumanoids stories. And getting married 5 times, you real jerk. Anyway.
Wow.
So we move from here to San Francisco City College. I don't know if that's exactly where we are, but that's where I'm going to say we were.
Close enough.
And I love how they introduced this woman who's the speaker. Her name is Sandra Shore, who, this is kind of a direct quote, whose contributions to the city are too numerous, basically, to even mention at least one of them. He's like, she's made so many contributions, I'm not even going to tell you one. So here she is. Just like the worst kind of like backhanded compliment of an introduction I've ever heard.
Well, they do that terrible thing where they were just like, and now a woman who needs no introduction.
Exactly.
It's like, no, it's like, look, I don't know who she is.
Introduce her.
And I love that for shows like this where they're just like, we could tell you about all the accolades that this person has received. I'm like, yeah, fire away. It'd be really cool to actually kind of have some of that backstory to understand what it's going to be. Oh no, it's just another random person showing up to provide a little bit more exposition before they're shuttled the fuck out of here.
What it was basically like, we don't have the time to tell you about this one woman, but we will tell you everything you need to know about these 4 men. Which was the very next line that comes up. And they used her to introduce them.
Yep.
Her lines.
Am I right, guys?
Am I right?
I mean, ladies.
You are right.
Ladies. She even says at some point, like, before I talk about this find of the century that exists behind me, let me introduce these 4 assholes. It's just like, I like it. We've talked about this in the past, where if you're not going to introduce characters, heroes, and their names, and associate their names with their faces so we know who we're watching during the show. If you're not going to do that during the theme song, we like when they either do a roll call at the beginning of a show or they work it into the plot. So we'll give them that. They did actually work all the names of these guys into the introduction for this particular scene. A little ham-handed, but it worked. We know who these guys are. Do you know who these guys are?
I mean, we've already talked about Herc Armstrong.
That's right. He's the leader of the gang.
We sort of get the introduction. We then jump over to the engineer who did all the vehicles. We get Dr. Bright.
Dr. Derek Bright.
Then go. Everybody's a doctor in this. This is what makes this so funny.
They're all doctors.
They were just handing out random PhDs one day.
Sorry.
Oh, because we have Augur. He's the distinguished. He's made all of the protective exosuits and weaponry.
Yeah, which is why he should have been like euthanized from the start. Like they should have looked at his designs and just been like, "Fuck no, you are not on this team. What are you drawing? You're like a kindergartner."
There's a point in this where they do a back and forth saying these are that's a testament to my suits. And then the guy goes, well, my designs.
Jesus. Neither of you should be bragging about this. We'll talk about these. We will talk about these suits coming up really shortly because we finally get to see them, and they are horrific.
Like this team, from that comment alone, this team should have been cut in half. They should have been like, you're dismissed for your designs. You're dismissed for actually building these pieces.
Not questioning these terrible designs.
Like, you should be fired because you designed this, but you should also be fired because you read these designs and then were like, okay, I'll get to work.
Okay, I'll get to work.
And then spent
this all looks good.
Yeah. I'll get right on this.
And then spent taxpayer dollars, probably in the millions, on each of these things.
Oh, these unfunctioning suits for a human body? Like, no problem. I'll get right to it.
Okay, so we got one guy left. Oh no, we don't. I think you covered everybody.
Yeah.
No,
no.
You
got
do
one
have.
left.
You
We've
do
got
have
a doctor.
Oh God, his introduction is the worst. Please do it like she did it.
Dr. Jonathan Slattery.
From Mad Men.
Otherwise known. Yeah, I know. Otherwise known as the Liquidator.
Because he can discharge chemicals.
Do you remember what you called him though? After the Liquidator, he had another moniker that was his description of his specialties are even fucking worse.
Oh, he was
he's
the chemist. He's the chemist, but what was the other thing?
Well, he's John Slattery, better known as Liquidator, master of chemistry, spelunking, and sundry arcane sciences.
That's right. Yes.
Sundry arcane science.
Look, when you go to San Francisco City College, you can triple major in all of these fields.
Only I knew.
Yeah. If only I would have known.
We all would have gone back
something years ago when I would have gone back to school.
We would have joined up with Earth Corps.
So much money.
Yeah.
The
way better than the
potential
Peace
dramas.
Corps. Way cooler than the Peace
dream.
Corps, man. Fuck. John Slattery, though, that just cracked me up to no end because he's the guy that plays Roger Sterling on Mad Men.
Yeah, that's right. Oh my God.
So I don't think he was a kid when he was watching this. It was 30 years ago. But pretty funny nonetheless. So there you go. So there's our team. We've just been introduced. So now shit's about to hit the fan, right? Like, is normally how it happens. This sequence to me was basically like, it was kind of fun because it was like watching a Godzilla movie. But after it was over, it left me wondering, why wouldn't I just watch like a Godzilla cartoon? Go ahead.
It's really, really interesting that you say like Godzilla in particular, because I really got a King Kong vibe from the whole setup of this. Like, they had something unknown up on stage. They had this entire auditorium filled with like thousands and thousands of people, and then they sort of have this big reveal where they pull back a curtain to presumably show what this unknown quantity is, what this petrified amber dinosaur is that's behind here, and everybody's just kind of like,
Yeah,
sort
it
of like a King Kong
when,
reveal moment.
Yeah, when they were on stage and the thing kind of breaks free, spoiler alert, that was very King Kong-y when they're in like the theater and it's kind of breaking free on stage. But then...
Right. Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. Those are made of tensile steel.
But like, I love the part that like from the 4 Earth Corps guys, we get one of the guys. At this point, like, I really can't tell them apart because I haven't really...
Which guy did what? I'll tell you who it was.
Well, we have one guy that just goes... He just goes, I told you there was a weird energy coming from the crystals.
That's gotta be Slattery, because he's kind of like the hippie guy who's always like trying to get in tune with everything around him.
Right. I was like, weird energy. I was like, when did you become a crystal healer, buddy?
Yeah,
I was like,
80s.
Like, unbelievable.
And then
this guy's like,
to Jamal's point that he made earlier, Augur is super creepy because he's like a bald guy. He looks kind of like a Mr. Clean, but he's got a dark mustache, and he's trying to hit on Sandra Shore. But like from behind the curtain, he's not even talking to her. It's like, yeah, I wonder what she's up to late at the night.
Yeah, he does.
It's super creepy.
What do you think? She got a boyfriend? Something else?
She's looking to get a key to the city.
She wanna come talk to daddy.
Those are direct quotes. Yeah, direct quotes.
Those are direct quotes.
It's really hard too because I know that we're all shitting on Augur, but I was like, this guy, as you come to find out later, is just insane.
Yeah,
insane. All right, but he is also like dead on biggest creeper in this show. And there were moments where I was like, I could watch 22 minutes of Augur just creeping.
Augur clips.
Augur creeping.
Of just like him in the club, and he's like, how's it going, ladies? Do you know it's 5 for 5 shots tonight? Who's interested? Who wants to get fucked up?
Augment the show.
Yeah, just really like, I could have just made this whole series of just creepy Augur moments, and I think I would have enjoyed it just as much, to be honest. I don't know why. It's just there were so many weird things that happened. I was like, I got on board with this.
Well, one of the creepier things that happens with him happens at the end of this sequence. So let's get through this. It's like half King Kong, half Godzilla, because while you've got this thing on stage that's kind of breaking out and threatening to like stomp all over the place, you've got this crazy Japanese tendril monster that's kind of like Cthulhu that comes up and starts stomping across, of course, the Golden Gate Bridge because we're in San Francisco. So he's destroying that, and that was kind of like the Godzilla-esque thing for me. So you've got kind of these two monster movie tropes kind of meeting together, and I thought that was kind of cool because I was like, I don't know if they're going to fight each other. I don't know if this is some sort of like King of the Monsters thing where they're going to battle for supremacy or what's going on. All I know is that the police in San Francisco have lasers, and I feel like that is something that probably needs to happen.
Just like in general, like modern day, they should have lasers.
Yeah, we should probably have lasers because A, they can't hit anything with it, and B, it doesn't hurt when they do. So I feel like if we just give them lasers, a lot of problems will probably be solved, except giant monster.
So this is like your solution to like the gun problem and epidemic in America.
Yeah, lasers.
Just give people lasers.
Give everybody lasers. Second Amendment,
Like
corollary
non-threatening.
Everybody has the right to possess lasers. Yeah.
Okay. Non-threatening lasers.
I think if you're going to give everyone lasers, at some point, some select few people who are deemed worthy should be given like a classy weapon, like a sword that lights up with a crystal and like has a short range that you use in holocron. If we're, I don't know if that's
like some kind of like laser sword combo.
Yeah, some kind of laser sword thing that lights up. It almost feels like a saber.
Yeah, like I was gonna say like a saber kind of
something that lights up like that, and then they can like use their powers to battle lasers because you got to have something.
Oh, and because it's it's light too, you can always block other lasers with it. That actually makes sense. We should circle back to that offline, and there might be something to it. That's pretty smart.
Yeah, just a thought.
That's smart. But yeah, so in the meantime, before we get to some like light sword thing, the police all have lasers, which doesn't do anything. So it of course falls to the Earth Corps to try to like settle this situation. And here is where shit gets to the point that I just wanted to turn it off. As soon as I saw these guys get into these suits, I was done. I was done with this show. Because I was like, you cannot even sell me as a child. Like, if there's something on TV that looks like something I could have drawn years before I was watching it, I'm not going to buy that toy. It looks like a bunch of primary shapes stacked together and on top of each other, like you'd see on a refrigerator somewhere from like a kid in pre-kindergarten. It was awful. Maybe you guys have a difference of opinion.
There was 2 seconds where I was reminded of another cartoon that we'd watched called Centurions, where they power extreme and then they have all these pieces that come into their body that attach them.
Don't you disparage.
But even then, Centurions made a shit ton of sense because it was still like mobile. They still had the ability to function and like move their body the way that they needed to. These suits seemed like, let me just put it this way. If one of these suits had giant like circular balls.
All of these suits had giant balls. Let's get that out of the way.
Right.
The shoulders.
The shoulders, the ankles,
the ball shoulders. But like
everything that should have been a joint or was like a fixed bone was now a ball. Like they had a gall problem. Like they were just infested with like an insect population and they just swelled up. Fuck.
Yeah, everything literally looks like a bee sting that just somebody needs to like. You need Benadryl.
These robotic suits are just in a persistent state of anaphylactic shock. They're just swelled up the entire time, and there is no Benadryl flow.
Like what should have happened is they should have gotten into their vehicle. They should have put the suits on, and then somebody should have run up to them and be like, "Do you guys need an EpiPen?"
Yeah, just stab it into
yes,
yes,
yes. We need 6.
I can get out of this suit now.
Yeah, finally, it's swollen.
I can finally get out of this suit. All this pain is caused because these joints are not made for a human being.
All the swelling has finally gone down.
Yeah. I'm sorry, when I was outside of my suits, I didn't have a problem with the fact that my ankles were giant balls and were clinking together nonstop. But now that you've given me this EpiPen, I'm able to get away from this cursed suit that restricts my every fucking movement.
Look, and we've seen stuff like this before. Like Centurions, they had their Lego kind of exosuits that they would just clamp machine parts on. I love that. We had Exo Squad, where they just kind of like would go into these E-frames, which were kind of big, bulky, cumbersome.
That had like a wire jack Matrix style that plugged into like the back of their head.
That was it. They weren't like giant misshapen. Those are cool toys, though. You know what I mean? Like those are at least cool, functional toys that make sense. If this is your boy Shin, I'm sorry, these are terrible. These designs are terrible. And they would not be functional in any way, shape of the imagination. I can't even like wrap my head around those. Like forget the monsters and everything with the plot. I cannot wrap my head around the designs of these characters or the toys. What failure in quality control in a toy factory in Taiwan happened that spat out
Taiwan.
that spat out all these toys that they were like, well, fuck, these are fucked up. We really got to make a cartoon that explains these now because we're not going to swallow that cost. Go ahead, Jamal.
Go ahead, Jamal.
The very first time I saw the suits, I said, okay, this is Metroid Prime if they lost all their money.
Exactly.
And like they had budget cuts.
Broke ass Metroid Prime.
Extreme like austerity measures out the butt. Like they could not build a proper suit. I was like, if this was Samus, this is the worst version. It's almost like they were like prototypes that they all rejected and then EarthCore bought.
Yeah, exactly. Just like leftover Samus suits. It looks like if Tony Stark had his Mark I armor and then never had another idea except to make it look like balls.
Yeah.
So like, again, we've talked about people like needing to get fired and needing to get like cut from this team, bragging about what they were doing. Again, this is another perfect opportunity because somebody was like, I drew these things and created them. Our boy Shin created them.
Heard of them?
Like sketched these things out, sent them then to a toy shop or like a place where they were making the molds in Taiwan, and Taiwan was just like, yep, let's get right to work on this. Like everybody should have been fired down the line.
I really hope that the toys came first and they were just like, nobody's buying these things because they look like ass. Let's make a cartoon that explains it. And then don't explain it. Just make it.
Then don't explain it.
But like, who the hell would have made these molds and just been like, so?
I think
my 5-year-old brother
maybe the
came
molds
with me
were
to work
upside
today.
down. Something.
They were
just
put them on the wrong
these were
way.
like weird sex toys because of just like the number of balls that were on them.
Tendril.
Tendril. Like maybe this was like a weird fetish like sex toy thing, and then suddenly they were just like, we gotta market these to kids because we're not making any money because nobody's gonna put these things inside of themselves.
I just don't get it, man.
Oh, Dave's agreeing with me right now. Okay, good.
This is not agreeing with you.
We're turning Dave. He's becoming a franchise.
I think we're really selling Dave.
Okay, look. Even if the design, even if the shape of these things made any kind of anatomical sense, the color scheme.
Roy G. Biv, what's up?
It's like
What's up?
It's like whatever colors the rainbow shit out is what they decided to put on these characters. It's like whatever was the cheapest dye for the plastic molds. They were like, that's the one we want. We want just like a bruise color purple, and we're just gonna put a tube in it for some reason and give him a drill.
Yellow number 5.
Fuck. All right, here's a good time to talk about Augur though, because you guys said he was crazy. So we learned from like the sort of sciencey guy, the nerdiest guy of this group, Dr. Bright, that he's like super into this vine creature tendril. And he's like, oh, this machine in front of me, which I don't know what it is or how it works, tells me that this thing is probably cold-blooded, but I will need a tissue sample. So here's your boy Augur. What's he up and do?
So like he, as Jamal was alluding to, you know, if you only had somebody's suit that had sort of like a sword, like a glowing kind of like circular saw sword on the end of it that was able to, like a serrated blade that was able to just come over and just like cut something out. If we only, we have somebody.
Oh, we do. His name's Augur. Yeah.
Which is
purple
funny
monstrosity.
because that's really not what an
He
augur
was like if
is.
Grimace just like really hit the weights hard and then just decided to pour himself into a suit.
But was like only working on glamour muscles.
Yeah.
Like,
just joints.
Just bulking up my joints.
Every day, shoulder day, son.
Yo, I'm working that elbow workout
Chest and
today.
back.
Blowing that joint up.
Yo, it's me,
It's
Tony
all
Horton,
swole, I
just doing
can't even
shoulders
bend it.
nonstop 7 days a week.
Bring it.
It's a new CrossFit workout. 100% joints. New CrossFit joint.
Joints.
All joints all the
Failure
time.
joints.
Ladies love joints. Get your joints swole.
Oh,
And now you
God.
have arthritis.
So
what does Augur do with this?
So he immediately, again, this, like, you know, we've talked about this a lot, and this seems to be like a reoccurring theme on so many shows, is that you're put into a situation where you actually see the team operating as a team for the first time, and their first inclination, their first thing that they do is everybody's just like, break, go do your own fucking thing that you want to do. So Augur immediately runs out with his knife arm and just runs towards this unknown tendril that, like, you know, we've seen that tentacle at the fracking site earlier.
Right.
He's now back in full effect. He's kind of like a cool Swamp Thing.
He's like a Swamp Thing, Cthulhu,
monster.
Lovecraftian monster. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the design.
Like, he's kind of fun. I like, and that this was the toy that my friend had that I always loved too. And so like he comes like running up to Tendril, who's just like smashing cars, and he just begins like cutting off a piece of his foot. Like just runs up next to a threat. Again, I can definitely see where the fact that this was all made by the same production companies, because if there's anything that we've learned from Bigfoot and the Muscle Machines is that if you have a problem, drive your monster truck straight into that problem.
Yep. Smash it.
All right, and solve your problem that way. This guy is like, there's a problem, I'm gonna go run into it, and then I'm just gonna cut it wide open, steal a piece of it, run the fuck away.
Hey, you know what you're gonna do when you go up, cut a thing, and then take a sample of it?
Yeah, what's up?
You also want to quietly yell whatever your organization is.
Yeah, Earth Core.
But it wasn't even like loud. He was just like Earth Core, just like creepily whispering to him, like
guys. Again, like Augur is gonna be the guy who meets you in like the W Hotel, like in New York, at like the bar, like late at night. It's gonna be like 1:30. You're gonna be thinking about like how much longer am I gonna be drinking tonight? He's just gonna be like, yo, what up, Earth Core girl? And you're gonna be like, oh, Earth Core, really? Like. And that's gonna sell you on him. Break a
piece up, take it back upstairs with Dad.
But like that's how much of a creepy player he is about the entire thing. Like he's just a weird freak.
So that's going on. Augur's creeping people out. But meanwhile, you've got this thing back in the San Francisco City College auditorium that's also breaking out of its amber shell. And it turns out it's not 100% dinosaur. It just kind of sort of has a head of a dinosaur, kind of. Thing?
Just sort of a skull of a dinosaur?
Skeletor's chest?
Yeah. Things got weird at this point, because you find out that these two giant monsters actually know each other, and we finally learn their names. So the Tendril monster happens to be Tendril, and the giant dinosaur monster turns out to be Decomposer. Decomposer. And it's not even spelled the way you'd like. D''composer. Sort of like he was a classical musician.
Oh, I thought it was just decompose.
Was it just decompose?
Yeah, I think it's just because
regardless.
Because for the longest time, like he looks like he's like a skinned, like if you were to pour acid on a T-Rex,
hydrofluoric
like
acid.
Hydrochloric acid on a T-Rex.
Yeah, you're right.
That's what this guy looks like, and he's sitting there for the longest time, and like he's a gross looking creature, and he's just going decompose. And you're like, what? Okay, cool. Looks like you're already decomposed. Like he
is.
Naming the state that your matter is in is not helpful.
Stuck in a rock. Stuck in a rock.
So at this point, Tendril comes over and actually frees Decompose from this thing. So their plan now is to, and Decompose just kind of says this quietly. He's like, free me and we can go free Metlar. And you're just like, the fuck? And then basically the place collapses upon Liquidator and Sandra. And he's kind of rescued her. And they escape. She ends up escaping like on a helicopter that takes her away, which we get to another creepy point.
Well, there's one part as they're escaping that Liquidator is in there rescuing Shore, and something's going on, and Decompose is kind of like lunging at them, and then he just blasts him
with whatever is in his suit.
He just money shots Decompose right in the face. And it's like, I'm out.
It worked.
It's amazing.
So we get to our first commercial break in this show, and this has like one of the cardinal sins of 80s and 90s cartoons that I absolutely hate, where they close on something like a line, somebody saying a line or an action, and then they come back and it's the same line or action, but weirdly it's like a different person saying it or a different tone of voice, and it just messes with your head as a kid. Like, you're like, did I have like a memory problem? Like, did I fall and like hit my head and remember things differently? Go ahead.
I was like, I was amped up. I was ready to go. Like, back from commercial. Then he comes back and he's like, oh no, someone's chasing us. Like, it took the air out. I was like, wait, are you no longer worried about the situation you're in? He's like, you sounded super worried before the commercial, and now you're like, just whatever happens.
Yeah, like two cereal commercials and an RC toy car later, and you're like, no big deal. Everything's cool. I had a smoke. We're fine. We're back in the studio.
He was like if you went down to the shore and you went to like one of those tchotchke places, you know, that's like trying to sell you like shells and like other various like sundries and crap that you would get at the beach. And there's like a wooden sign that just suddenly says like, it is what it is. Like, that's suddenly what he turned into. He was just like, what can I do about it? These monsters are here. It is what it is, guys.
And you just whisper, Earth core, and just walk away.
Earth core.
So speaking of Earth core, we are now back at Earth core HQ, which is just some random like bunker out in the middle of the desert somewhere. I don't even know where they were supposed to be.
Camp David.
Camp David.
Was it Camp David? That was a hell of a travel for them from
David.
San Francisco. At this point, you have a radio announcer. This is one of my favorite, just kind of like throwaway lines, because they work this weird like existential dread into this thing that must have been like, it must have been some Cold War era shit still like hanging over the populace at this point. Because the radio announcer says, he's talking about these monsters and how they disappeared and what exactly is going on. He says, were they from outer space? Mutations caused by toxic waste? Or were they a mass illusion created by the stress of modern living? And then somebody just turns the radio off. Like, fuck that. What?
So,
you can't ask that of kids.
I think, and I only say this because like there's so much that goes on, and I really want to get to the craziness that is this show, because we're not there yet. All right, but like the main points are that you find out is that the team is, again, they're going in their own separate directions, and then also that the military doesn't care.
No, they don't give
because
a shit.
they all have one of those. They have one of those lines where they're like, "Well, I guess we're all on our own." And you're
Literally.
like, "Yeah, you guys kind of seem like you've always been on your own. Like you guys are always just rocking like rogue, like nonstop. Like it doesn't seem like people." This is the crazy thing, is that there seems like a credible threat, but the military is like, "We're not paying attention." Plus, there must have been like news reporters or something like that. The town was being destroyed by a Cthulhu and a dead T-Rex. And people are just like, well, maybe it was a mass hallucination.
Yeah, it could have been mass hallucination.
You don't know.
Yeah, just an earthquake, probably. Mass hallucination.
Who knows?
Stress of modern living.
Yeah, stress of modern living.
That's what it was.
But like, you get to the point where like everybody kind of like, they get like a hot tip from one of the oil workers, like one of the guys who was like on the fracking site.
Yeah, his buddy over at the
drill.
drill.
Yeah, and Dr. Bright's just like, well, that seems like a credible lead. I'm gonna go do that.
I love when he's talking to the
cool.
general though, like the off-screen general somewhere, and he's like, "No, we have credible information that they're from the center of the earth," and he says "center of the earth" about 6 times, and then he's like, "They're not extraterrestrials. I guess we're on our own." Terrible.
Look at center of the earth.
Center of the earth. Yeah, so they're divided up now, and they go in 3 different directions for the 4 of them, right?
Right.
So Liquidator, who's kind of like the hippie guy, John Slattery, he goes to the middle of the forest where Herc was originally. And then we've got Herc and Augur team up in a submarine that they apparently have, also on the taxpayers' dime. And they go into the San Francisco Bay because they think that maybe that's where the monsters disappeared to. And then you've got, who's left? Dr. Bright, who finally gets to sort of suit up in one of the weirdest contraptions, I think, maybe on the show.
Yeah.
This is the blue suit, right?
He's not even like a suit though. He's just kind of in like his workman's overalls with weird bear traps on his hands. With like neon green bear traps on his hands. And he rappels down into the hole that they were drilling into the earth in a complete waste of a sequence that was completely useless.
It was totally unnecessary because, like, long story short, like unfit Nick Fury decides that he's gonna, like, as Dr. Bright is lowering down into it, he cuts the rope. He falls. Bear traps deploy out of his fists. He grabs onto the side, but at the end it looks like they start a cave in and everybody runs away. All right, but then Dr. Bright like climbs up out of the rubble at the end. Like,
how did he get through? Yeah, how did he get through?
He was like he kept saying like, I'm 50 yards down, I'm 100 feet down, whatever it was. This was another one of those commercial breaks though, where they like, he said one thing and then they came back from a commercial break and he repeated the exact same thing. So that infuriated me. I wanted him to die
enthusiastically.
Unfortunately, it did not happen.
Oh, I'm gonna die. Cut to a commercial. Come back. I'm gonna die.
Crushing us like a tin can.
A tin
can.
From the
commercial break.
Crushing us like a tin can.
It's like I think it was tin can. Was that the line? Yeah, it was a tin can.
Yeah.
I love. Okay, so at this point though, we're finishing up with Dr. Bright here because he doesn't matter and he should have died. But as he's like being buried under the earth, Fat Nick Fury comes over and he has like this henchman out of nowhere, who's like the stereotypical, he's splattered for sure, boss. He's like a very stereotypical kind of henchman. This guy, whose name is Shore, by the way, Nick Fury has some of the best lines and some of the worst deliveries. Like, trigger the cave-in, then no one can prove anything. And they wheel out this giant, like, I don't even know, washing machine size, like, ball bomb that just explodes this whole thing to cause a cave-in. At which point he says, our work is done, let us now depart.
Let us now depart.
He sounds like a Catholic priest at the end of mass.
Did you enjoy the service?
Go with God.
Everybody go in peace.
Go in
peace. Peace be with you.
It's ridiculous.
And then he delivers the best line of exposition possibly in the whole show. Now to acquire the plans for Earth Corp's environmental suits. God, these guys, I hope they got paid well, because they did not give a fuck, these voice actors.
Because the priciest thing on the show is those suits.
You got a washing machine bomb. You bought off all the drillers.
And you're trying to get this unattractive looking suit that's going to be very unflattering on your fat Nick Fury body.
Okay, so I would argue the next least interesting thing that happens is with Herc and Augur underwater.
Yep. They go underwater. They take the sub, and at one point, Augur has the best line. He just goes, "Look out!" And to which Herc replies, he goes, "Ha ha! Tuna fish."
Yeah, because they thought things were coming, and it was just big tuna fish school.
The best was his follow-up, though. He just goes, "Tuna fish. It's not our problem today." I was like, is it a problem any other day? Like, is this just like an off day for you guys? Do you normally have a beef with tuna fish?
It's not our problem today.
I don't.
Earthcore.
So they basically they're under. They find their way into a lava tube. They run into the monsters again, and that's where, like Jamal was saying, they got us and it's crushing us like a tin can. And it's crushing us like a tin can.
It seems like they're pretty far underwater, correct?
2 miles.
Yeah, 2 miles. Thank you because that's an important distinction, and I bring that up because I want to let everybody know that if you are ever diving or if you ever receive a scuba certification, that you're really only ever supposed to go between like 30 to 60 meters.
That's close to 2 miles, though.
Is it?
Sure.
Okay. Fair enough. I don't know distance.
Definitely not.
I didn't know. It's definitely not.
It's not even
it's
close.
not even close, guys.
Did you just really say,
no,
that's close to 2 miles?
Pretty close. No.
30 to 60 meters.
It's not. So the whole point and the reason that I'm saying this is that if you can technically go down to, I believe it's like 99 to like 101 meters, but then your ascent has to be slow because you can potentially get the bends.
The bends.
If you're trying to bring
Radiohead album.
You're trying to bring scientific discussion into this terrible show.
No, I'm not.
We're gonna have it's gonna be a long discussion.
Because ultimately, what happens is this sub gets crushed by the monsters,
and then they themselves blow it up. The humans on board.
They put their suits on and they blow the pressure on the ship and just eject themselves 2 miles up, like and up and out of the water.
That's why the bulges are on the suit for the bends.
That's what it was. Hold all your bends.
That's what it is.
So that the blood can boil.
Yeah.
In those cauldrons.
It just holds all your blood in those spheres.
All your blood boils in those cauldrons. It brings it away from your heart and away from your brain.
It just puts it right in your joints.
Yeah.
Now it makes sense. What you want to do is put all the blood from your body, put it in your one knee.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking true.
So like they get up to the top of this island, they climb out, and all of a sudden Decompose immediately begins to try to attack them,
claw.
and then they just run. They kind of just run away.
Well, he gave up because he had to go check on his buddy Tendril. It was like a really tender moment between the two of them.
Right.
Very sweet.
So like that happens. So let's get to arguably the only storyline that actually really matters.
Because we get introduced to a new sect of creatures, and we also learn some backstory. So this follows Liquidator into the forest, where he got some weird vibes earlier, even though he wasn't there.
Right.
So there's been reports of weird vibes. So he goes to check it out, and pretty much as soon as he goes there, he uses some weird device which explodes, and then just starts like talking to creatures around him. And it turns out that's.
Well, do you remember what the device explodes? Yeah. Dave, and then he just goes, "Come on, communicate with me. No reason we can't be friends."
Just the worst kind of hippie. The worst kind of hippie. Because then all these trees start like moving and growing and looming over him like terror monsters. And they're basically just like, you're not leaving this forest alive. And he's still trying to like commune with them. Then long story short, they're basically like, look, you seem like you have good intentions. So we're just going to weirdly breathe on you. And it's going to explain this entire backstory of what's going on. It's more or less what happened. So this is where we get our backstory and exposition, which to me, again, was the only sort of interesting thing from the whole story. But it's pretty straightforward, right? So we have this long-ranging battle going way back in time, under the surface of the world, between the Mutors and the InHumanoids. Mutors are the quote-unquote good guys, which are basically redwoods, a bunch of sentient trees. The granites, a bunch of sentient rock people. And then Magnacore, which is like this weird lava-looking dude.
It's like a Gemini creature.
He's
like a weird Gemini creature.
Yeah, because he's half like kind of lava rock and half kind of just like magnetic being, or like an ice being.
Right.
But he creates this magnetic field that can contain the leader of the Inhumanoids, and that's the main thing.
Right.
But yeah, so I need to go over a couple things of how the other Inhumanoids were contained, specifically
Get into it.
decompose.
Get into it.
So where do we have here? Okay, so Metlar was confined in the magnetic field. Tendril was locked up in that underground tomb, which is he was freed by the drill because they drilled specifically into his underground holding cell.
Correct.
Decompose, however, since he's like an undead creature, he was stunned into like motionlessness by the sun and then pushed into a pit of amber. It was at this point, fuck this show. That's not how amber works. It's not how amber works. Amber's not just like a thing that you can mine. Go back and watch Jurassic Park again, and you'll figure out how that. Yeah, go ahead.
But like, hold on, because a smart person a couple minutes ago just said to me, "Are you trying to bring science and logic into this?"
No.
Shit
I
show?
said because if you are, we're gonna have a very long discussion. Like Bear Claw would have had his arms ripped out of his sockets if he tried to stop himself falling down a 2-mile deep mine shaft, but he's totally fine.
I mean, the suit protected him. I mean, that's what.
Yeah, all their blood went into their balls.
Obviously,
yeah.
The suit.
Yeah.
The blood balls.
Understood. But like you learn that there's this really epic war that's been raging on for like years and years and years, you know, between these Mutors and the Inhumanoids, and man has sort of now they've really fucked up because they've unleashed these two humanoids, which now they're definitely the Decompose and Tendril are definitely going to be going after Metlar to try to free him from Magmacore. And if you understood or followed a single word that just came out of my mouth, congratulations to you, because there was a moment when I was saying all of it where I was like, do I actually know what I'm saying? Like, did I comprehend everything that just came out of my mouth?
You're wasting so much brain power on these things.
Fuck, man.
In general.
I'm starting to change my view.
Thank you. Now look, I watched, I know Jamal watched an extra episode. I watched the 5th episode of this miniseries. So do you guys have anything else from this episode first before we touch on those a little bit?
I have one final thing. At the end of this, one of the big things that we mentioned is that during that, when Tendril was attacking and Augur went out and cut off that little piece of him, the very end of this episode, you come back and you find that there are all of Earth cores back in their Earth core base. All right, they're in Earth core HQ, and they're researching the fact that the piece that they've cut off of Tendril, it's starting to expand, like it's starting to get bigger. All right, and so they're all sitting around the table, and Liquidator is just like, you are never gonna believe the shit show story that I just fucking learned.
I just tripped balls
about all this
forest.
stuff. Yeah, like I just took a shit ton of pay. I was just at the Burning Man.
I just ate a ton of
like
shrooms.
A satellite burn.
Let me talk to you about it.
Yeah, he's like, let me fill you in on all these things. Like, I love the fact too that like he's a scientist, like he's a doctor, but he brings back no scientific proof. Like I would have brought back one of those like trees.
Yeah,
and been like,
one
you guys
of your
gotta
buddies.
breathe on everybody else.
Yeah.
Like you guys gotta clue everybody in because we're trying to help you. We're Earth core. Like it's in our name that we're trying to benefit you in some way. But then just suddenly out of nowhere, like as he's explaining it, Tendril just smashes the top of it, and then it just cuts. You like, and it's like to be continued. To be continued. That's what I'm saying is that this show, the pace of it is so rapid, and it just leaves you with these ridiculous cliffhangers left and right that you're just like, okay, like I'm legitimately interested to see what they do with this hot pile next.
Oh, it was a hot pile. What'd they do with it, Jamal? I'm curious because I could not find that second episode.
Well, the ending of the first part with him slamming it down starts the next scene, the next episode with him just gently flicking.
Just caressing.
to match
just caressing the top of the
bring back.
The de-escalation of everything that's happened.
So I did watch the second episode, but as I said, I had to watch it while also trying to ignore the people who were viewing it to see it. But the biggest thing that stood out to me in the beginning was they finally introduced the female character, and like she knows like some very Star Trek-y like hand-to-hand combat maneuvers that she was using to get these guys who were attacking her off her. But other than that, and she also had a vehicle where she could fly. Her vehicle was a flying one, a hovering one. So
and then they all combined to form one giant fighting robot, right? Fuck.
Shit.
Fuck this show. Let me tell you guys actually a couple things from episode 5 that may or may not sway your opinion or make you want to go back and watch the whole series if we can find it somewhere. So Decompose has this weird ability when he just like touches a living human with his like claw, just touches you, doesn't kill you, just touches you. He actually turns you into a decomposed, which is sort of this like weird augmented human. You grow like 2-3 times your size, but you like your bones are on the outside and you look like an undead kind of freak. That happens to Sandra at some point, but she is like, with a dose of sunlight, she is turned back to her normal. I think they call it her lovely self. The narrator calls it her lovely self, which is also super creepy, like Augur.
Earth core.
Oh, we also should have mentioned that Augur, when Liquidator saved Sandra from San Francisco City College collapsing, Augur runs up to him, does not ask if he's okay. He's like, "What did you and that woman get up to in there?" Like a fucking like creepy ex-boyfriend kind of thing. Super creepy, dude. What else we have from Metlar is apparently freed at some point, and he has this ability to like bring statues to life and turn them into an army for him. So he reanimated all the statues at the Battle of Gettysburg, and the Earth Force had to fight basically statues of like Civil War soldiers at the Battle of Gettysburg. I have no idea why or how that happened or what happened after that.
I'm in.
And then it turns out the whole thing was Eye Patch. Eye Patch made a deal with Metlar so that when Metlar took over the world and killed the Earth Force, and Shore helps him kill the Earth Force, that Eye Patch can rule whatever islands are left. Even though I would imagine that pretty much all of humanity would be dead at that point. Not a great deal, but what are you going to do? The last point I want to make is that Sandra also gets a terrible power suit that she kind of looks like Alpha 5 a little bit from Power Rangers. She's got weird boob armor with like a slot in it. She looks really bad. Looks like somebody just wrapped her in tinfoil. It's really, really bad.
Yeah, but like on Sandra, like where are them balls located?
None. No balls.
Where are them balls on that power suit?
Balls.
No balls?
No balls.
Oh, so they finally...
Not even her boobs. The one thing on a suit of power armor that would kind of make sense being like ball shaped is like this weird trapezoid triangle thing with a slot in it. Makes zero sense.
Oh, man.
Zero sense.
Missed opportunity.
Weird ball suit makers. Anyway, fuck. I feel like I've exercised some demons on this one. Any final thoughts before we get to some other reviews?
I feel like you're about to scream and just punch something, Dave.
Punch.
I will say his passion is his turn.
His passion is turning.
I'm glad my
I was sitting on the fence and now I'm like,
my cartoon debate tactics have won.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, there's still hope for you yet because we do have 2 user reviews from unbiased sources here. So, Sean, do you want to read the first one there? Do you have that up in front of you?
Yes. This is Michael Catt. Back in 2009, he wrote, "Good cartoon." The title of this review may contain spoilers.
From 30 years ago.
Yeah. I remember watching the InHumanoids in the late 80s while in a rehab center. We got
key demo.
Look, I'll preface it by saying I feel kind of bad for this guy that he had to watch this particular show while in rehab, but I'm glad he got through.
Oh yeah. This is we got to watch TV at certain hours, and it just happened to coincide with the telecast time of this show. I was immediately interested in the cartoon, and I think the monster from the center of the earth were cool. I believe it was Metlar, Tundro, and Decompose.
I think you confused Tundro with Herculoids, but that's okay. We'll give it to him.
Yeah. He's close. He's real close, guys. The Decomposed character was my favorite. Was my MT favorite.
My mountain favorite. It's the best kind.
We're reading these verbatim, folks, so I apologize. It had a good look and would simply shout, "Decompose," and the masses would turn into mindless zombies ready to do his bidding. I don't remember the rest of the plot, though. I mean, at this point, who really does? Could someone help? I just remember some scientists exploring inside a mountain and stumbling into the InHumanoids. It was fun while it lasted.
The end.
Then I got clean.
Yeah, and I straightened my life out.
Yeah.
Jamal, do you happen to have a good like Greek accent by any chance?
Oh, Greek. I think that's one of the accents I can. I have practiced.
Mm.
What does Greek sound like? Just give me
Can
a
you do
taste.
Balki Bartakamos
Balki Bartakamos?
from Perfect Strangers?
I don't know.
Cousin Larry.
Cousin Larry.
It's me, Balki
It's
Bartakamos.
me, Cousin Larry.
Just do like
That's
a
way too
like
Italian.
a
It's way too
Yeah,
Italian.
I'm
right now.
going
do like a
straight
rounded
Italian.
Italian. You'll be all right.
I don't even know a well-rounded
I don't know.
Italian.
Like a Mario.
Oh, is that Greek?
No.
Like a Mario. A bit of the pizza pie. That's super Italian. I can't do Greek.
Oh my God.
That's one accent.
Do you want to
I cannot
read another review from George Carposis?
I'll read the review from the nice American, George Carposis. His title is The First Ones. I remember in Humanoids when very young, appearing in Greek television, they were something different because they contained so many monsters. If one watches the child zones of today's private Greek channels, he would be surprised by how monster-infested they are compared with the equivalent cartoons of my youth. The series which started the trend were Humanoids, which, with their memorable music Giggle, and I think he was going for jingle there, and many monsters, started this trend, which now has become mainstream, offering to Hellenic and Universal, parentheses, I imagine, youth its monstrous fruit. Truly a trendsetter in Greece, although I suspect it was not much of a novelty in the English-speaking world from where it originated.
Nicely done. That was fantastic Greek reading.
Two words I want to take out of that. Monstrous fruit.
I got giggle fruit.
Giggle fruit.
I got giggle fruit.
Giggle fruit.
Okay,
I'm going to keep it as
keep it as is. This is the point of the show where we tell you whether or not we actually recommend that you out there in listener land check it out, and if we do not recommend it, whether or not it gets the dip. Now, again, for Roger Rabbit fans, the dip means that if it does get that, this show will be erased from all cartoon existence. We will never mention it or talk about it again. And in order to get the dip tonight, it's going to need at least 2 out of 3 dip recommendations. So we're going to start with our special guest, Jamal. A, do you recommend this show? And if not, does it get the dip?
I don't recommend it, but I don't want to give it the dip so other people can be turned to the dark side like I was.
Okay. So we changed you were kind of on the fence.
You changed, yeah, I was on the fence,
Okay.
and now, after actually sitting down and talking through it, this show's is garbage. It's trash. It was made by trash people. Nelson Shin, heard of him?
Heard of him?
George Arthur Bloom, screenwriter,
Heard of him?
So yeah, I'm not a
Gotcha.
fan.
John, how about you, buddy? Did we sway you at all?
Nah, I recommend this
Okay.
show. I would say it's worth checking out. Definitely does not get the dip.
Well, I'm not going to recommend it. I am with Jamal on that, but I am going to give it the dip. So you're lucky
Ooh.
that this still does exist, regardless of how angry I am about it. I just don't think
Which
there's
means that
anything really redeeming about it. I don't think the character design, the hero design is terrible. The monster design is okay, but also just like weird looking in not like a compelling way. The story's kind of boring. The animation's the only thing that was like quality to it. Even after watching that 5th episode, I was just kind of like, oh, I'm done. I don't really need to see more, fill in the gaps. I don't need to know the mythology. Not interested. Your names are terrible. You got weird ball suits. Your blood's boiling. I don't know, man. I think for me, this gets the dip, and I will never talk about it again.
So you're saying we can't? So you're saying we can't bring this up on one of our all-star episodes where we recap about all of our?
We can.
favorites?
I'll skip that over. No, I'll just get angry all over again.
I just really want to get to these conversations where Dave's just like, I'm just going to back off for a moment and allow you to discuss it, but I will refrain from providing my opinion.
But the good news is we do have a fun way to kind of close out the show here tonight. We are going to go back to last question of the week, and this one came from Bigfoot and the Muscle Machines. It was related to Yank Justice and Bigfoot. It's actually brought to you by your pal Rocky Road and his car, the Humdinger, and his buddy
Tank Bicep riding in the
Woo!
glamour muscle. Woo!
So our question of the week, what is your best truck driver name and your best monster truck name? The best answer that we pulled from the interwebs comes from our good buddy Bobby Anthem. He says his...
Bobby.
Yeah, do you want to read it?
It says Bobby's response is, my name would be Punch Hood Wrestle, and my truck would be Dire Dread. Get it? It's like a tire tread.
Best.
I love
Bobby's the best.
I love it.
Thanks for explaining that, Bobby.
Punch. Settle down. Settle the fuck down, Jamal. All right. Punch Hood Wrestle. Perfect. 100%.
And then Bobby took a nice long nap after that. Well deserved.
Big, powerful brain.
Powerful brain. But now we want to give Jamal a chance to get in on this action.
Yeah,
too.
Jamal.
So Jamal, what do you got for
Jamal
us? What's your truck driver name and monster truck name?
Truck driver name is 8-Ball Shiv.
Okay. Don't mess with that guy.
8-Ball Shiv. And my truck name is Track Panzer. Like, get it? Like Black Panther?
I see.
Get it? So I think I did that right. I think I mastered that. I need a nap.
Yeah, now you earn a nap. But before you get
8-Ball Shiv.
From D Block.
And I'm also franchising my truck out to Slave Digger.
Jesus.
It's my arch name.
I really think we could start a new version of Bigfoot and the Muscle Machines with this new crew. I like it. I like this road crew. Oh boy. All right, before we close it out, Jamal, thank you again for joining us. If the folks out there would like to get in contact with you or or come see you if you happen to be in the DC area doing any shows over the next couple of weeks, why don't you let them know what you'll be up to?
So I'll be performing as part of Washington Improv Theater's POTUS show, which runs from October 14th through the first week of November, right before the election. That is super important this year. And also, if you want to see me on social media, you can follow at Hello Newman. The O is a 0. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Nice.
John, what about you, buddy?
So as Jamal mentioned, I'm going to be in POTUS as well, so you can definitely check that out. Also, I am producing a long-form comedy improv festival that's going to be in DC. It's called the District Improv Festival. It is the 4th annual District Improv Festival this year. You can check out information about tickets, workshops. Best thing about this is that we have been able to massively lower ticket prices, as well as there are tons of free ticket prices, and all of our workshops are available up online right now, and that's districtimprov.org. Another shout is that Jamal and I are getting ready to enter into the Maryland 72-hour film festival.
Oh, right. Yes.
We are doing that in moments. From now.
Might be late.
We are going to be up until about 5 a.m. writing a short film. So you can check that out. Crowded Elevator Pictures on Facebook, as well as also crowdedelevatorpictures.com. You can find all the stuff that we have there. It's all up on Vimeo as well. So it should be a lot of fun. So whatever we write this week, by the time this is probably out, it will probably be up on the internet for people to be able to see it.
Probably.
So yeah, probably. That'll be good. So you can check that out as well. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Sean Paul Ellis. Dave, what are you up to, buddy?
Same old shit. You can find me on Twitter at Dr. Claw MD. You can also find me over at collider.com, nerdist.com, and davefromboard.com. You will find all the information for both my contact info, Jamal's, and Sean's over at our website, which is SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can also find us on Twitter at MorningTunes. Check out Sean's handiwork on our Instagram page. You can also find us on Facebook and YouTube. We love your Facebook comments over there, guys, whether it's just the question of the week or just saying, thank you for reminding me of this cartoon show, or please never cover this cartoon show again. It's terrible. Anything you want to say, feel free to come over and post it on our Facebook page. Our YouTube account, you can listen to a video capture of these podcasts each and every week. You can also listen to the free audio podcast every week through iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. As always, if you just want to reach out and drop us a line, you can do so SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. That's going to do it for the second week of Monster Madness Month. We've got a little more lighthearted stuff coming up in the latter half of the month. We're going to get into some more kid-friendly cartoons.
Thank God.
Yeah. Something that's hopefully a little more palatable. We got some Mickey Mouse stuff coming up. We got some Casper stuff coming up, and some Charlie Brown stuff coming up too. So yeah, we're gonna hit some of the old classics, some feel good stuff. No more terribly drawn ball monsters coming at you in your nightmares.
Well, that wraps up this episode.
Ball monsters.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming to our ball monster show, Jamal. Appreciate it.
Yes, of course. Thank you for coming back, Jamal. Much appreciated, man.
Thank you for having me.
I'm sorry that it was the show.
No, I enjoyed it so much, but hated and will not recommend.
That's kind of the core of this show. And thanks again to Sean, as always. And thank you to our listeners out there. We will see you next time. Have a good one.
Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for listening to Saturday Morning Cartoons. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to transform and roll out.